we'd been working with the possibility of signing the Armed Forces Covenant for a number of months, but I wasn't going to just sign something just for the sheer sake of signing something to say I've signed something. So we were looking for a reason to do it and a concept to do it, much similar to what we'd kind of done with the 525s. We were really good, really lucky to have come across the Career Transition Partnership team who are here today at the Pest Tech. And we've been working with them on how we can come up with something that adds real value and meaning, which then made me feel comfortable of signing up to the Armed Forces Covenant. So what we've come up with is that anybody who's a member who recruits somebody from ex-military via CTP, who will support them in creating the advert, job descriptions, etc., etc., anybody who's recruited from that source will pay 50% of the RSPH Level 2 fees via one of our training providers, and also will provide some bespoke training via either Duncan or Mark, much like we do for the 525s. So feedback-wise, it's been brilliant. There's a lot of people from the industry at the moment who work in the Armed Forces. Having worked in the industry for a long time, I've come across a lot of people with an ex-military background. So there's a real strength of people from that sector. And from members looking to recruit people, it's another angle that they can go down, whereby they know that they've got the support of the NPTA to be able to go and take somebody on and get them to the qualification they need.
So yeah, I was in the RAF regiment for a brief time. With injuries I came out, and my dad then got me a job with Rent-A-Kill back in the day, in the sort of late 80s, as a sort of a fill-in job really. Loved it so much. 37 years later, here I am. So yeah, it's obviously the military gives you a sort of a good work ethic, and you take pride in what you do, and yeah, pest control was just one of those things that sort of I fitted into and thrived in. I worked my way up from the bottom as a technician to director level, and then five years ago set my own company up. So yeah. And over the last sort of 20 odd years, we've always found by employing ex-military, very good work ethic, they get the job done, to a very good standard, and it's just sort of inbred in them, from the training they've had and the dedication. We are deliberately looking to employ ex-forces. My colleague Steve, he's ex-forces. Sort of employed Steve 15 years ago in another company, and he's just joined my company. We're a part of the Armed Forces Covenant, which is, it's a privilege to be a part of that, and it's nice to give back, to the Armed Forces community. Ex-servicemen, we give discounts on pest control work, and obviously active service personnel we give discount to as well. So yeah. Absolutely, and the more people that get on board with the Armed Forces Covenant, I think the NPTA were the first sort of body to get involved. It's a wonderful thing. We should be actively going to the military and saying, look, this is a great sort of trade to get into once your military days have ended. And what I like about it, everything is different every day. It's not a boring job. You get great satisfaction from solving problems, and the money is pretty good as well, to be honest with you.
So as an ex-military dog handler and trainer, training detection dogs to detect explosives, drugs, worked in the private sector for a number of years with a range of different detection dogs, pet training for rescue centres, but now my business is canine assisted pest eradication, so CAPE for short, and we train dogs for the pest industry, so primarily bedbug detection and rodent detection. The dogs, I think the crossover, I was thinking about it this morning, I think the crossover is quite a bit. Like the detection work, definitely. So all the methodology that I learned in the military, I joined when I was 18. So that was kind of day one and a clean slate for me. But all the methodology is similar. There's obviously been adaptations and changes over the years. So then being able to apply that into the pest industry is very similar. And then I think one of the big ones is problem solving and attention to detail. I think as a dog trainer, you'd automatically problem solving constantly anyway, so it fits into the pest industry quite well. I think it goes both ways, to be honest. we're part of the Armed Forces Covenant, so we do employ armed forces as well. We've got 3 of our staff are armed forces, including myself. We're a veteran-owned business. We're founded from veterans. So for us, really, we're quite already established on the path there. But I think it's more communication. I think communication and the education around what industries they are. I kind of fell in. I was doing private security before I stepped into the pest control side of the business. And for me, when I saw that, I didn't know that you could be a dog trainer in the pest control industry. So that opened my eyes then. And I've tried to kind of push that from our own story and our own perspective. So yeah, I think a lot of things more can always be done, but I think it's more communication, just education of what other opportunities are out there. Leaving the military, you'll get kind of transition workshops and stuff. Usually they can be channeled down 1 or 2 routes. So I think it's more the pest industry working with the Armed Forces Covenant and working with the military to show what industries you can move into. Well, I see quite a lot of it, but I'm involved in it anyway. I don't know what that perspective could be from someone leaving or somewhere else. But yeah, definitely. I think it's quite daunting, really, leaving the military and thinking of what you're going to do. Sometimes it can be a massive trade change as well. For me, obviously, I was quite lucky. I was able to bring my skill set that I learned in the military into the pest control world. But say, for example, someone leaving the engineers or leaving the infantry, it's a total new trade. But I think the industry is quite open-minded and quite open, and generally a friendly industry. So yeah, I think with the NPTA signing up the Armed Forces Covenant, it's only going to help with that transition for a lot of people.
So I left school with very little qualifications, joined the Armed Forces at 16 and a half. In total I served 26 years with the Royal Welsh Regiment. Left there 15 years ago in 2010 and joined one of the big national pest control companies. At that time it was a company called Mighty Pest Control. I think Gareth signing up to the Armed Forces Covenant, having the knowledge of service leavers, like Gareth has already said, about having their work ethic, the ability to problem solve. That's one of the things that the Army always puts into you, or the Armed Forces, not just the Army, but the Armed Forces wants people out there that can problem solve. So it's ingrained into you, problem solving. So having somebody like that and having an employer that recognises that and is willing to quite often take people from the Armed Forces that aren't actually qualified already and qualify them up is a really good step. And they're out there. And I think the service community should really jump on board with that and take it on board that is one of the industries that is looking for good quality people to bring into the industry. It certainly puts the name out there that the company is part of the Armed Forces Covenant, and I think that the Armed Forces do then hold job fairs and all that sort of business, which if you're signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant is a big step in the right direction. There within the Armed Forces Covenant there's a number of different levels of award, from bronze up to gold, and they will come in and look at your business. How many members of the Armed Forces have you got? Do you do discount for the Armed Forces? And all of that can lead to gaining different awards, which then advertises you stronger within the Armed Forces community.